I still remember the exact moment my husband realized he had destroyed his own life. It happened in a silent courtroom when the judge unfolded a thin medical report and calmly read a single paragraph aloud. My mother-in-law stopped breathing for a second, my husband turned as pale as paper, and every cruel word they had thrown at me over 4 long years came crashing back onto them. Before we begin, please like and subscribe. Now, get comfortable and enjoy. For years earlier, I believed I had married into a respectable family. My husband, Daniel, was a senior procurement manager earning $138,000 a year. His mother, Gloria, proudly reminded everyone that their family had standards. She wore Chanel No. 5 every morning, carried a beige leather handbag worth nearly $4,000, and measured every person's value by money, status, and grandchildren. I was a financial analyst at a regional investment firm. My salary was comfortable. I handled complex spreadsheets, corporate budgets, and quarterly forecasts with ease. Numbers never lied. Unfortunately, people often did. During our first year of marriage, everyone smiled. Gloria cooked enormous Sunday dinners. Daniel held my hand whenever relatives visited. Every conversation ended with the same cheerful question. When are you giving us a baby? At first, we laughed. We were both busy building our careers. We wanted stability before starting a family. By the second year, the jokes became reminders. By the third year, they became accusations. Gloria stopped calling me by my name. Instead, she referred to me as that barren girl whenever she spoke to neighbors. She never said it loudly. She whispered just enough for me to hear. Every single time. Daniel never defended me. He simply sighed and changed the subject. His silence hurt more than her insults. One Thanksgiving dinner, Gloria placed a tiny pair of baby shoes beside my plate before everyone sat down. The table fell silent. She smiled sweetly and said perhaps decorative shoes would be the only ones I would ever see. Everyone laughed except me. Daniel stared at his mashed potatoes as if they contained the answers to life. That was the evening something inside me quietly cracked. I stopped explaining. I stopped crying. I stopped asking my husband to stand beside me. Instead, I started watching. Really watching. Gloria carefully controlled every conversation. Daniel avoided every difficult truth. They acted rehearsed, almost as though they feared something far greater than my inability to conceive. My instincts sharpened. I noticed hidden glances whenever hospitals were mentioned. I noticed Daniel deleting emails the instant I entered the room. I noticed medical envelopes disappearing before I could read the sender. The analyst inside me awakened. Patterns always revealed the truth. I simply needed enough evidence before making my move. The following Monday, I scheduled my annual physical examination at the same medical center Daniel always used. It was nothing unusual. While waiting for routine blood work, I casually asked the receptionist whether married couples could request fertility consultations together. She smiled and handed me several brochures. One sentence caught my attention immediately. Male fertility testing was always recommended before assigning responsibility to either partner. My stomach tightened. Daniel had always insisted the problem was mine. He claimed his physician had already confirmed everything was perfectly normal. I realized I had never actually seen a single report. That evening, I gently suggested we both schedule comprehensive examinations together. Daniel refused almost instantly. He said the subject exhausted him. Gloria interrupted before I could answer. She slammed her teacup onto the marble countertop and declared there was no reason to waste money proving what everyone already knew. According to her, defective women simply refused reality. Her confidence sounded rehearsed rather than genuine. Instead of arguing, I apologized. That surprised them. They mistook my silence for surrender. It was actually permission for them to become careless. During the following weeks, I quietly organized every household document. Tax returns. Insurance statements. Mortgage records. Medical reimbursement receipts. Credit card bills. Daniel rarely reviewed paperwork himself. He trusted me completely because I had managed our finances since our wedding. Hidden inside an insurance reimbursement summary, I found an unfamiliar billing code from 18 months earlier. The provider specialized exclusively in reproductive medicine. The patient identification number matched Daniel's employee insurance account. My pulse accelerated, but I forced myself to remain calm. One receipt proved nothing. I requested archived explanations of benefits through the insurer's online portal using our shared household authorization. Hours later, encrypted files appeared. Most contained routine appointments. One document required additional identity verification. I submitted the request anyway. 2 days later, the report arrived. I opened it while sitting alone inside my office conference room. The diagnosis was unmistakable. Severe male factor infertility. Multiple laboratory confirmations. Specialist recommendations. Follow-up consultations. Daniel had known for nearly 2 years. He had hidden every result. Worse, Gloria had attended one consultation according to visitor authorization records. They both knew. They had watched me absorb every insult while protecting his pride. I closed my laptop without shedding a single tear. Anger would have clouded my judgment. Precision would destroy them instead. That afternoon, I contacted a family attorney with 15 years of litigation experience. I paid the $500 consultation fee without hesitation. I carried organized folders instead of emotional speeches. The attorney studied every document quietly before looking directly into my eyes. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Do you want revenge, or do you want justice? I answered without blinking. I want the truth presented where nobody can deny it. She nodded slowly, outlined every legal option, including evidence preservation, financial separation, and strategic timing. I left her office carrying calm instead of heartbreak. Their countdown had quietly begun at last. After meeting the attorney, I changed nothing on the surface. I still prepared breakfast every morning. I still reminded Daniel about appointments and business dinners. I even thanked Gloria whenever she criticized my cooking, my clothes, or my empty womb. My politeness confused them. They assumed I had finally accepted my place. In reality, I had simply stopped seeing them as family. They had become subjects in an investigation. Every conversation became evidence. Every insult became another brick in the wall I was building around them. My attorney advised patience. She explained that the strongest cases were won long before anyone entered a courtroom. Documents mattered. Timelines mattered. Bank records mattered. Emotional speeches rarely did. I followed every instruction with absolute discipline. I opened a separate bank account using only my salary. I redirected my quarterly performance bonus of $12,400 into that account. I stopped contributing extra money toward Daniel's luxury spending. When he asked why our savings seemed lower, I blamed rising insurance premiums and property taxes. He accepted the explanation without checking a single statement. Numbers bored him. They never bored me. Meanwhile, Gloria became increasingly cruel. One afternoon she invited several neighbors for tea. While serving expensive pastries, she announced that a real woman filled a nursery before she filled a wardrobe. Then she looked directly at me and smiled. The women laughed awkwardly. I smiled back, poured everyone fresh tea, and memorized every witness sitting around that table. My phone rested silently in my apron pocket, recording every word. By the end of that month, I possessed dozens of audio files, hundreds of text messages, and carefully scanned financial records. My attorney stored duplicate copies in secure cloud folders and encrypted drives. Nothing could disappear anymore. Then fate handed me something even better. Daniel left his tablet at home before catching an early flight to Chicago. A message flashed across the locked screen from his private email account. It displayed only the subject line. Fertility follow-up results. He had never stopped visiting specialists. Using our shared recovery password, I accessed the mailbox legally because the device belonged to our marital household and remained logged into his account. Inside were years of correspondence with doctors, laboratories, and counselors. One email from Gloria stood out immediately. She wrote that nobody must ever learn the truth because people would respect a barren son less than a barren wife. Reading those words felt strangely peaceful. I no longer questioned whether I was doing the right thing. They had answered that themselves. I printed every relevant email at a commercial print shop 20 miles away to avoid recognition. Each page was dated, numbered, and placed into chronological binders. The mountain of proof kept growing. So did my confidence. I was no longer reacting to cruelty. I was preparing its final invoice. I refused impulse to confront them early because surprises lose power once announced. Silence protected my strategy. Truth, delivered at the right moment, would become unstoppable. 3 weeks later, Gloria finally crossed a line she could never erase. She invited nearly 30 relatives to celebrate her birthday. Crystal glasses sparkled beneath the dining room lights. Fresh lilies filled the house with their sweet fragrance. Every expensive detail was carefully arranged to impress the family. Halfway through dinner, Gloria stood with a champagne glass in her hand and announced she had an important family matter to discuss. She smiled at everyone before pointing directly at me. She said 4 years had been wasted waiting for a miracle that would never happen. Then she declared that her son deserved a real wife, one capable of giving him children. Daniel remained seated without saying a single word. His silence was louder than every insult in that room. Gloria reached into a folder beside her chair and produced divorce papers. She placed them in front of me as though she were presenting a birthday cake. Several relatives looked uncomfortable, but nobody stopped her. Daniel finally spoke. He calmly said we should separate with dignity because there was no future together. He never mentioned the medical reports hidden in his email. He never admitted the diagnosis that belonged to him. Instead, he allowed everyone to believe I had failed as a wife. I picked up the papers, read the first page carefully, and quietly signed the acknowledgement of receipt without agreeing to any terms. Gloria looked almost disappointed that I refused to cry. She wanted a scene. I gave her complete silence. 20 minutes later, she ordered me to leave her house immediately. She reminded everyone that every piece of furniture belonged to her son because he had paid for it. She even followed me upstairs to make sure I packed only my personal belongings. I folded my clothes neatly into 2 suitcases. I took my laptop, my personal documents, and one framed photograph of my late parents. Before walking out, I looked around the bedroom one final time. I felt no sadness. Only relief. The prison door had finally opened. I moved into a furnished executive apartment near my office. The monthly rent was $3,200, easily affordable with my income and savings. My attorney immediately filed responses rejecting every false allegation inside the proposed divorce petition. More importantly, she filed formal discovery requests demanding complete financial disclosures and all medical evidence relevant to the claims Daniel intended to make before the court. We already possessed the truth. Now we would require him to either produce it or lie under oath. Either choice would destroy him. Days later, Daniel's lawyer contacted mine, insisting the divorce remain private and uncontested. They offered me $80,000 if I signed a confidentiality agreement and waived future claims. My attorney smiled after reading the offer. She pushed the document across her desk toward me and quietly said they only pay this much when they are terrified of something becoming public. I smiled for the first time in months. Their confidence was cracking. The trap had already closed. They simply had not realized it yet. From that day forward, every move came from their side, not mine. Daniel suddenly began sending polite messages asking whether we could settle everything peacefully. He claimed he still respected me and wanted to avoid unnecessary stress. I read every message twice, saved screenshots, and never answered emotionally. Every reply I sent contained only facts. Please direct future discussions through legal counsel. Nothing more. Nothing less. Gloria reacted very differently. She called dozens of times, leaving furious voice messages accusing me of destroying her son's reputation. She insisted that decent women kept family matters inside the family. The irony almost made me laugh. For 4 years she had announced my supposed infertility to anyone willing to listen. Now she wanted privacy because the truth threatened her son instead of me. My attorney advised me not to block her number. Every voicemail became another piece of evidence showing harassment and intimidation. Meanwhile, Financial Discovery uncovered something unexpected. Daniel had transferred nearly $247,000 from our joint investment account into a separate brokerage account 11 months earlier. He never disclosed the transfer to me. The transaction description claimed it was a temporary business investment. It was not. Bank records showed the money remained under his exclusive control. Because I had managed our taxes, I immediately recognized another problem. He had failed to report several investment gains correctly. My attorney hired a forensic accountant with 22 years of experience reviewing complex marital assets. Within 10 days, the accountant produced a detailed report outlining concealed transfers, inconsistent declarations, and misleading financial statements. Everything was supported by documents, timestamps, and account histories. There were no assumptions. Only numbers. I remembered what my father used to say before he passed away. Liars feared memories. Honest people welcomed records. The evidence continued growing stronger. One Friday afternoon, my attorney informed me that Daniel had officially sworn under oath that he was physically capable of fathering children and that our marriage ended because of my medical condition. Hearing those words did not upset me. Instead, I experienced the same icy calm that had carried me since discovering the insurance reports. He had finally committed himself to a lie inside a legal proceeding. That single decision transformed the entire case. Perjury carried consequences far beyond divorce. My attorney immediately filed a motion requesting production of every fertility evaluation conducted during our marriage. She attached insurance billing summaries proving such examinations existed. Daniel's legal team attempted to delay the request, arguing medical privacy. The judge rejected the objection because Daniel himself had made fertility a central issue in the divorce. Privacy no longer shielded dishonesty. Within days, the court ordered complete disclosure. My attorney called me after receiving the signed order. Her voice remained calm, but I could hear satisfaction beneath every word. She simply said, "They have nowhere left to hide." I thanked her, closed my office door, and stared through the window at the city skyline. For years of humiliation were approaching their final chapter. Not through shouting. Not through revenge fueled by rage. Through truth, carefully documented and legally impossible to escape. The courtroom was almost full on the morning of the hearing. Several relatives had come expecting to watch me accept blame one final time. Gloria entered wearing a cream designer suit, a pearl necklace, and the same expensive perfume she believed announced superiority before she even spoke. Daniel avoided looking in my direction. His attorney organized thick folders across the table, pretending complete confidence. Mine carried only one slim binder. She had always believed the strongest evidence required very little decoration. When the proceedings began, Daniel repeated the same carefully rehearsed story. He claimed our marriage failed because I had been unable to conceive despite years of trying. He described himself as patient, supportive, and emotionally exhausted. Gloria nodded dramatically from the gallery every few minutes. Then the judge asked a simple question. Had either party undergone independent fertility evaluations during the marriage? Daniel answered yes, but claimed his results had been completely normal. My attorney remained seated until the judge invited her to respond. She stood, thanked the court, and requested permission to submit certified medical records obtained under judicial order directly from the fertility clinic. Permission was granted immediately. The courtroom became unusually quiet as the documents were handed to the judge. Page after page turned slowly. Nobody spoke. Finally, the judge adjusted his glasses and began reading aloud. The report stated that Daniel had been diagnosed with severe male factor infertility almost 2 years before the divorce petition. Multiple laboratory analyses confirmed the condition. Additional consultations recommended treatment options. The records further confirmed that Daniel attended appointments with his mother present during counseling sessions discussing the diagnosis and its implications. Every sentence landed like a hammer. Gloria's confident smile disappeared completely. Daniel's face lost all color. My attorney then submitted the insurance reimbursements, appointment logs, specialist correspondence, and Gloria's own email urging absolute secrecy because she feared society would judge a son more harshly than a daughter-in-law. The judge paused after reading that message. He looked directly toward Daniel and asked whether he still wished to maintain his previous testimony under oath. Silence answered first. Then Daniel lowered his head. He whispered that he wished to amend his statement. The judge replied calmly that sworn testimony could not simply be rewritten after contradictory evidence appeared. The consequences would be addressed appropriately. Several relatives stared at Gloria with expressions I had never seen before. They were not angry with me. They were ashamed of her. My attorney requested dismissal of every allegation concerning my supposed infertility and asked the court to consider the deliberate emotional abuse, financial concealment, and knowingly false statements made throughout the proceedings. Every request was supported by documents already admitted into evidence. Nothing depended upon opinion. Everything depended upon proof. As the hearing ended, Gloria attempted to approach me outside the courtroom. For the first time in 4 years, she could not meet my eyes. She opened her mouth as though searching for an apology that had arrived far too late. I walked past her without saying a single word. Silence had defeated her more completely than anger ever could. The court issued its final decision several weeks later. Every major allegation against me was dismissed with prejudice after the evidence demonstrated that the accusations had been knowingly false. Daniel was ordered to provide complete financial disclosures, reimburse substantial legal expenses, and compensate me for assets he had attempted to conceal during the marriage. The judge also referred the matter concerning his sworn testimony to the appropriate authorities for further review. Watching the ruling unfold, I felt no excitement. I felt peace. The truth had finally been given a voice louder than lies. Outside the courthouse, relatives who had ignored me for years suddenly wanted to apologize. Some admitted they had always suspected Gloria exaggerated the story but had been too afraid to challenge her. Others confessed they simply believed whatever Daniel said because he appeared calm and respectable. I accepted their apologies politely, but I understood something important. People who remain silent during injustice rarely become heroes afterward. They simply change sides when the outcome becomes obvious. Gloria's carefully constructed image collapsed almost overnight. Neighbors learned the real reason behind the divorce. Friends who once admired her elegance began avoiding her invitations. The women who had laughed at her cruel jokes no longer answered her calls. Her greatest fear had never been losing money. It had always been losing admiration. That was exactly what happened. Daniel resigned from his management position a few months later after internal compliance reviews began examining inconsistencies connected to financial disclosures made during the legal proceedings. Whether those investigations would have ended differently without the divorce, I never discovered. It was no longer my concern. My responsibility ended the moment the truth entered the public record. Mine had been to tell the truth. The consequences belonged entirely to those who created the deception. As for me, I accepted a promotion at work and relocated to a beautiful apartment overlooking a quiet river lined with walking trails and old oak trees. Every morning I opened my balcony doors and listened to birds instead of arguments. Every evening I cooked dinner without waiting for criticism. I filled my home with fresh flowers because I liked them, not because anyone expected perfection. Eventually, I volunteered with an organization supporting women experiencing emotional abuse inside their marriages. I never encouraged revenge fueled by anger. I encouraged preparation, documentation, financial independence, and self-respect. Truth becomes powerful only when it can be proven. That lesson changed my life forever. Looking back now, I realize they never threw me out because I was weak. They threw me out because my silence made them believe they had already won. They mistook patience for surrender. They confused kindness with helplessness. By the time they understood the difference, every escape had already disappeared. Justice did not arrive overnight. It arrived one document, one signature, one verified fact at a time. In the end, I did not rebuild the life they had taken from me. I built one they could never have imagined. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Let me know in the comments what you would have done. Months passed, and for the first time in years, I no longer measured my days by someone else's approval. My mornings belonged to me. I drank coffee on my balcony while watching the sunrise reflect across the river. I answered only to my own schedule. There were no whispered insults from another room. No sarcastic comments about empty nurseries. No footsteps outside my bedroom door waiting for another opportunity to remind me that I was supposedly incomplete. The silence I had once feared became my greatest luxury. One afternoon, I received an unexpected envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from one of Daniel's cousins. She admitted she had been present during many family gatherings and had laughed along with everyone else because she was afraid of Gloria. She wrote that watching the court hearing had forced her to confront her own cowardice. She thanked me for standing firm and proving that dignity could survive even the cruelest humiliation. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside a drawer. Forgiveness did not require forgetting. It simply meant refusing to carry someone else's guilt any longer. A year later, my attorney invited me to lunch to celebrate the anniversary of our victory. She smiled and reminded me of the question she had asked during our first meeting. Did I want revenge or justice? I finally understood my own answer completely. Revenge would have lasted a single moment. Justice had given me an entirely new life. Before leaving the restaurant, she told me something I would never forget. She said the strongest people were not those who shouted the loudest. They were the ones who remained calm while building an undeniable case. Those words stayed with me. Occasionally, someone would ask whether I regretted not confronting Daniel and Gloria the moment I discovered the truth. My answer was always the same. No. If I had confronted them immediately, they would have destroyed evidence, rewritten history, and painted me as unstable. Patience protected the truth until the truth could protect me. That was the difference. Today, my home is filled with laughter from friends who value honesty over appearances. My career continues to grow. My peace no longer depends on anyone else's opinion. The chapter that once seemed like the end of my life became the foundation of my strongest beginning. Sometimes losing the wrong family is the only way to discover the life you were always meant to live. And if my story teaches anything, let it be this. Never allow someone else's lies to define your worth. Stay calm. Protect yourself. Gather the facts. Let actions replace arguments. Because when truth finally steps into the light, deception has nowhere left to hide. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Let me know in the comments what you would have done.